Hello, it's Greg Miller from Simplify AI Education Training and Consulting again. This is the second in a two-part series of videos on the pace of AI change and what businesses in particular and other organizations probably need to do about it. And in this episode, what I'd like to talk about is the AI roadmap. So maybe your organization hasn't embraced any AI software, hasn't done any training with its staff on it. Maybe it's one of those organizations like many of the big companies from Apple to Samsung, as we see in this screen shared report from tech.co, that placed a ban on the use of generative AI and ChatGPT earlier in the year. Now, I don't think those bans are going to prove fruitful in the long run. And I'll get to that in a little bit. But if I were giving recommendations to a business on how to implement AI and how to prepare to fully realize the promise and the efficiencies of it, I would give a few suggestions. The first is to start getting your data in order. Even if you haven't started using these tools, you haven't started learning how to prompt, you haven't trained your employees, you haven't created a policy for the use of AI or restrictions on the use of AI, you want to get your company's data in order. You want to categorize it as to what is relevant now. I work with some organizations that have very, very long histories. Schools that have been in existence for over 100 years have a lot of data. And not all of that data is going to be something that you want to feed into an AI model. Because where we are going with this is either the use of that data through an existing cloud based model like ChatGPT 4 and their data analysis tool, formerly called Code Interpreter, or what some companies are starting to do is to create their own internally housed large language models. And what that gives them is the ability to ensure that their proprietary data and sensitive customer data is not then going out across the web, being fed through two different layers of failure, potential vulnerabilities, prior to being manipulated and brought back to them in a way that they want to see. So we're going to categorize and we're going to separate our data. Then we're going to clean the data. For schools in particular, I come from a school background. I was a teacher and principal for the last 17 years. We are under certain restrictions on what sort of identifying information for students or parents or families can be given out. So, FERPA and COPA are two sets of legislation that restrict what schools are supposed to make available and student data that needs to be protected. So, we want to clean our data from anything that could be compromising. If you are a healthcare organization, you've got your HIPAA laws that you have to comply with. And if you want to run an analysis on your patients, but you want to stay HIPAA compliant, then you're going to have to clean that data. We're not going to go into everything that is entailed in that process. If you have a full time IT person or a data analytics um, guy, they can, or gal, they can help you with that. After we've separated the data, categorized it, cleaned it, then we're going to turn our eye towards our hardware specifications. So if we're going to run a large language model in house, and you may say to yourself, but I thought a few months ago that it took millions of dollars to train those. Well, a few months ago, that's true. But again, the pace of change is so rapid. You have companies like Mosaic that used to build large language models for big companies at a cost of $500,000. They have brought their costs down on a lot of those models to $50,000. We are not too far away from being able to run a proprietary in house large language model. The in-house chatbots are already available. You can spin those up. So on your standard Apple computer with an M3 processor, it's got a neural network kind of built into it already. Now, neural networks are one of the things that a lot of these um, machine learning models and large language models are running off of. It's got a little one built into the M3 chip. It has the ability, if you wished to run a stable diffusion image generation model on your computer. And it is capable of inferences. So Apple has already been planning this out. They've been thinking about how AI is going to be in all their products. It's going to be local. It's not just going to be cloud-based. And with those capabilities on your higher end computers, you can bring a lot of the data privacy concerns back in-house. You just have to create and run a model internally. And that's why we're doing our categorization, separation, and cleaning of data. When you've started to think about that and how you're going to purchase the machines that can then run those models locally, you also want to be thinking about policy. How am I going to train my employees? What is my official policy, disciplinary action, restrictions on use, legalese to protect the corporation, institution, organization? What does that need to look like? And there are already models for this. I've helped write some policies for some organizations, some generative AI policies. Beyond the policy, once we figure out what we're comfortable with, then we need to decide how we roll it out to employees. How do we train them? How do we get them on board? One reason that Apple and Samsung put these bans on generative AI is even at these large tech companies, you've got people that were taking proprietary information or using AI to check code in such a way that it could reveal some of the product initiatives that hadn't been fully brought to fruition to competitors. And so, if that's what's happening at big tech companies who probably are pretty good about their tech training, all things considered, what is it going to be like at your company? How are we going to stay compliant with privacy laws? How are we going to protect your product? How are you going to make sure that your employees realize the efficiencies without exposing your company to the perils? Those are things along the AI roadmap that you need to be thinking about now and having conversations about, maybe with an external consultant like myself. This is the sort of thing that we do. And it is the first step before you've even implemented things that you need to be taking. Now, beyond that, as part of the employee training, I do recommend that you start to familiarize your employees with the technologies, with the scams that come with the technologies, because there are imposter programs that are trying to snap up your data and create backdoors for viruses and other nasty things, malware, and ransom attacks. I just read about a healthcare scam attack locally in my area that is causing some big headaches for some people. Um, and we want to avoid those. So, how do we train our employees proactively? How do we start to get them used to the skill of prompt writing and prompt engineering? How do we acquaint them with the interfaces of some of the other more complex tools that are used for marketing, audio, visual, video? Those are the things that a proactive organization that is going to be competitive in the marketplace of today and tomorrow should be doing. So that's a brief overview of an AI roadmap, talking about some of the changes that we're seeing. And I should talk about one more change that we don't know exactly when it's going to hit. We know that Microsoft and Google have both been experimenting with AI in each of their flagship programs. So PowerPoint, Outlook, Gmail, they want AI in those. And that raises some big questions as to how we maintain data privacy. As a principal, I used to have a little footer at the bottom of every single email that I sent that the information in this email is confidential and privileged, with all the legalese trying to protect the organization and the information being sent in that email. And if AI from Google is sucking up everything that I write in my email, everything that I send out, how do I keep that confidential and privileged? We may not be able to unless we build internal systems and we opt out of some of those things that we've been using and used to using for the last 20 or 30 years. That's the sad truth. Now, Microsoft and OpenAI have promised enterprise solutions at enterprise subscription levels that will secure that and promise to not train their models on that data if you are one of those enterprise customers. But can we all afford that? Um, can we trust that promise when we already know that a lot of these large language model companies have not disclosed their full training set of data? And that's why we have these lawsuits brewing from authors and artists against a lot of these companies. So, a lot to consider. I know heads might be spinning right now, but that's why we need to be considering now. Thank you for your time. My name is Greg Miller with Simplify AI Education Training and Consulting. I hope you have a great day.